Close your eyes and think about one day of your childhood and how you'd wish to spend it. Probably playing outside, video games, maybe exploring, watching TV, hanging with friends, going to the park. It could be a plethora of activities. Some people in China spend their entire childhood making money for their families in very cruel conditions. The thing is, the children are not choosing to do this. In China, families are very poorly paid. The families are so poor that they need to sell their children's labor for menial pay, often in dangerous environments, but they have no choice because they have no money. We all know what child labor is, but let's look at some of the statistics of their living conditions, working conditions, and amount paid. According to the International Labour Organization, over 77 million children in Asia and the Pacific are forced to work. For comparison, there are only 74 million children in all of the United States. Many child laborers live in very small houses, often with only one bedroom for 3 to 4 people to share. A New York Times study shows that 45% of child laborers come from families in poverty. And it makes sense. The only people who would ever sell their child for 20 cents a day would be someone who is impoverished. Many children even sleep in their workplaces because their homes are such a wreck. Working conditions for children in China can be just terrible. Just look at this picture. Here you can see 5 children and 2 supervisors are working on making clothing. First, let's look at the room itself. The room is gonna have to support these 5 kids and 2 adults for up to 20 hours a day every day. This small room doesn't provide nearly enough space for 7 people to work. Next, let's look at the tools they are using. As you can see, the child in the front is passing around a knife. Passing around a knife! Also, all of the children seem to be equipped with this saw-like tool. Now, these children can't be any older than 6 years old. And I know when I was 6 years old, I wasn't anywhere near a knife or a saw-like tool. Now, let's look at the workplace itself. First, their workplace seems to be separated into 2 sections. The section with adults and the section with the kids. The adults are sitting at desks and have sewing machines to sew the strips together. And the children have one folding table to share between all of them and no chairs. They don't have any chairs. You can tell by the way that the little girl and boy to the left are leaning over their work with no chair to sit on. Needless to say, this isn't really a safe working environment for children. Now, you'd think that working in unsafe conditions for 20 hours a day in a very cramped space and wasting your childhood would be worth a lot of money, right? Wrong. Many children in China are paid only 20 cents a day. Many of these children work for 20 hours a day. This means that they only get 1 penny an hour. According to recent China Daily article, the minimum wage in China is equivalent to $1.65 per hour. So technically, these children are being hideously underpaid. If these children are working for 20-hour days, they should be paid at least $33 a day instead of 20 cents. Now, let's look at all of the human rights that this atrocity violates. Articles number 4, 12, 24, and 25 are all violated from child labor. Article 4 states that no one shall be held in slavery or in servitude. Slavery and the slave trade shall be prohibited in all of their forms. Slavery is defined as a condition compared to that of a slave in respect of exhausting labor or restricted freedom. Now, many of these children are paid very little or no money, and they are definitely treated like slaves, some being whipped, threatened, and otherwise abused. Article 12 states, "No one shall be subjected to arbitrary inferences with his privacy, family, home, or correspondence, nor to attacks upon his honor and reputation. Everyone has the right to protection of law against such inference or attacks." In China, the law almost seems to condone child labor. According to the international.law.com, the effect of Chinese labor laws is believed to have been cancelled out by the pressure imposed by economic necessity. This means that because of China's growth, supposedly, they have to employ children to keep up. Article 24 states, "Everyone has the right to rest and leisure, including reasonable limitation of working hours and periodic holidays with pay." Needless to say, these children do not get any holidays and wouldn't even be able to afford a day off. Remember, these kids' families are so poor that they sell their children as slaves. Even if they were allowed to take holidays, they definitely wouldn't be paid during their time off. Article 25 states that 1. Everyone has the right to a standard of living adequate for the health and well-being of himself and his family, including food, clothing, housing, and medical care, and necessary social services, and the right to security in the event of unemployment, sickness, disability, widowhood, old age, or other lack of livelihood in circumstance beyond his control. And 2. Motherhood and childhood are entitled to special care and assistance. All children, whether born in or out of wedlock, shall enjoy the same special social protection. These children aren't treated any concern for health or well-being, and some are being forced to sleep in their workplace, which varies from a janitorial closet to a junkyard. Many of the children are wearing mere rags. Needless to say, these children are not entitled to any special care. It may seem initially that child labor has nothing to do with biology at all. There are in fact at least 2 connections between our biology standards and child labor. The first is a link between physical health and child labor. According to the Child Labor Public Education Project, physical differences between children and adults may make them more susceptible to work-related risks. Children have rapid skeletal growth, higher chemical absorption rates, and underdevelopment of organs and tissues. This makes them much more susceptible to chemical toxins and bodily harm that they face in dangerous work environments. The second biology connection to child labor is the fact that when children are exposed to dangerous work environments, personal health is affected. The International Labor Organization reported that 1/4 of children who work suffer work-related injuries or illnesses. This can be in the form of limb loss in the case of traumatic injuries on farms. It can be in the form of asthma from persistent exposure to chemicals in the air and polluted workplaces such as factories. China also permits the use of lead-based paints and chemicals that stunt cognitive development. So the environmental exposures can certainly have a negative impact on child workers. At the end of the day, we all need to close our eyes and think about one of our happiest days of our childhood. We should think, would we sell that memory for 20 cents? We all need to remember that childhoods are being wasted every second that we don't act. What can one person do to make a change? Write a letter to your congressman requesting that we don't do business with countries who allow unfair labor laws. Chinese and Filipino clothing is primarily made by children. We can avoid buying clothes made in those countries. Both Gap and Nike have been criticized for using sweatshop factories and employing children. We can donate money to child aid organizations such as International Labor Organization or the Global March Against Child Labor, which encourages awareness. Every second that we aren't spending writing a letter to our congressman is a second that a 5-year-old spends in the scrapyard. Every second that we aren't spending awareness for this awful crime is another second that a child has to work. If you wouldn't sell your childhood memories for 20 cents, you should join me in the fight against child labor.